Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Socialism and Strawberries with our little update from Labour Black Socialists later on in the show. So, this week I'm really excited because I've got one of my favourite comrades on the show this week, and he's going to tell us a little bit about what he's been getting up to. So, Syed Siddiqi, let's get to it.
Hello,
How have
thank
you
you for
been,
having
mate?
me here.
How have you been?
I've not been too bad. Could be better, could be worse, like most people in the country. But considering all things pandemic, I think I'm doing fairly well. Hope you are too.
Thanks a lot, mate. And so, tell us a little bit about what you've been up to during the pandemic. What's your job role?
Well, I work in a hospital, so I work in the NHS in the radiology department. So it's been quite hands-on over the last year or two, especially with the pandemic and the ups and downs of COVID in terms of rises and patient care. But it's touch wood is slowly starting to mellow down a little bit. So hopefully we got ourselves a little bit of a break period before we go all hands on again come December and the winter season. So can't complain as it is right now. Ultimately working in a hospital, you see the goods and bads of life. So you appreciate the NHS more, you appreciate life more. Especially those that work for the NHS. So it's not been too bad. That aside, as you are well aware, we have been working on the Bangladeshi Socialist Society project, which has been ongoing for quite some time now. It was a pipeline for last year initially, but unfortunately, COVID kicked in, and we had to refrain from having an inauguration event in Parliament, which was being supported by numerous Socialist MPs, particularly from the Socialist Campaign Group, and which resulted in us having to delay the actual formation and inauguration of the organisation until now. So that's where I've been keeping myself busy.
Yeah, man. And so, yeah, tell us about how the group got together then. So, how was it started?
So Bangladeshi Socialist Society was initially an initiative that I took, started it off, being somebody that joined the party as a socialist member in 2015 during Jeremy Corbyn's initial leadership election. I was very enthused, like most people, motivated to get involved and help the community and the Labour Party as much as we could. So having joined the party, like many people on the left, I'm sure we all received some animosity from members for factional reasons. And as a socialist, personally, I felt there was not much of a platform for British Bangladeshi socialists in the Labour Party. To be honest, there is no platform. Not just a platform, but more importantly, a support base, a guide, an umbrella over your head when it comes to politics. And I felt it was essential, having experienced many forms of discrimination myself, in and outside of the party, in the workplace, and in the political field. I felt it was essential that British Bangladeshis in England, the UK, that are participating in the Labour movement do have a political home, that do have a platform that they can actually speak from, that they don't have to shy away from genuine left socialist politics. And something that I personally I had to feel the brunt of many people's negative comments, particularly from the Bangladeshi community that have over the years molded into the, in some cases, right-wing politics. Now, as a Bangladeshi, especially if you go Bangladesh, where you've got 170 odd million people that only as recent as 50 years ago fought a war for our independence, lost millions of lives, and fought that independence on a socialist platform. Now, I don't know if your viewers or even Bangladeshis are aware that one of the founding principles of the British Bangladesh the Bangladeshi constitution is socialism. Now, this is again down to the lack of education that people are not aware that this is one of our founding principles as an independent nation, and this is something that we should continue embracing. It's something that's helped our community, it's something that's helped the nation of Bangladesh, who currently are one of the leading inhibitors in Southeast Asia, whether you talk about the economy, whether you talk about the infrastructure. We are leading the way in Asia, and that's something as a British Bangladeshi that I'm very proud of. And we need to embrace this idea that socialist politics doesn't necessarily mean negative politics, and we should not shy away from actually expressing our views, our politics, and our commitment to the cause. And this is one of the reasons why initially when I had the idea of kickstarting the organization, having spoken to numerous people, particularly from the Bangladeshi community across the UK, involved in the socialist movement, to get on board. And fortunately, it's been really worthwhile. We've got many senior Labour Party activists who are supporting us. Jeremy Corbyn supporting us. Jeremy Corbyn is an individual that will be attending our formation dinner come Brighton conference in September. Aside from Jeremy, we've got numerous other MPs and Labour officials and elected officials supporting us. We've got the NEC Left 5 that will be attending our formation dinner, and we're still waiting for a couple of confirmations, but I've had it verbally, so fingers crossed that should be okay. And individuals involved in our movement is from across the country. So I don't know if people are aware, I would say 50% of the British Bangladeshi community reside in London, and the other 50%, about another 500,000 odd people, reside outside of London. So that's spread out between, you know, Humberside, Birmingham, the Midlands, South East, and so forth. So one of the things that we want to do as an organisation, and forgive me for not mentioning individuals on the actual National Steering Committee, the founding National Steering Committee, reason being that is an announcement we're waiting to announce on our formation dinner. So bear with us when it comes to that. But I promise you, many big names associated to the left movement from the Bangladeshi community that will be participating, active in the organisation, and you know, helping provide a platform for Bangladeshis from across the country to have a representative body that doesn't just represent London activists. We don't want to make it too London centric, so we're going to reach out far and beyond. We want to reach out to all the communities, all the corners of the UK, to try and make it as inclusive as possible and provide support as well as educate the British Bangladeshi Labour members, not just about Labour Party politics and socialism, but how it entwines with British Bangladeshi politics, and our values as a rising nation.
That absolutely sounds amazing, Syed. So obviously after your launch, what are we going to be expecting to see from the campaign group, ma'am?
Big things, and ultimately we're not just going to be working as a individual entity. It is one of our main priorities to reach out to other organizations such as yours, such as well, I don't want to go into individual names because it's unfair on organizations that I don't mention, but ultimately the objective is to reach out to every socialist Labour affiliated organization across London and to work with them directly, hand in hand, in projects, in campaigns, in national issues, to local issues, to regional issues. We want to be hands-on, and we're not talking about having once a year annual dinner with, you know, studied guests and you know, pictures and photographs. We want to get straight down on the ground, nitty-gritty, work directly with the grassroots. We're not an organization that wants to work from the top down. If anything, the total opposite. We want to work from the bottom up, and that means reaching out to community activists, political activists, and trade union activists to work with us, to work on the same issues that matter to us, from issues like the NHS and the, you know, quite blatant undercover privatization of many modalities within the NHS, if you want to call it that, to issues such as pollution and global warming, which is very close to our heart. I don't know if the viewers are aware, but global warming is having a disastrous effect on Bangladesh and the people of Bangladesh. We're a very small country, one of the most densely populated countries in the world, to be honest, unless situations change, and living in a very small, isolated piece of land. Now, Bangladesh as a nation, we contribute less than 0.4% of pollution worldwide. Now, you've got international governments, big companies, corporate companies making billions of pounds every year in profit. And the consequences of their profit and joy is the misery of the Bangladeshi community. The sea levels are rising. We're getting, you know, erosion on our land. People are having to relocate. Millions of people in Bangladesh are having to relocate on a yearly basis because of the actual climate change, which is directly affecting Bangladesh today, right here, right now. We're living with the consequences of the corporate companies' actions and international government's actions. So one of the things close to our heart as an organization is to raise the British Bangladeshi profile and voice in England, in the UK, to speak up, to try and encourage more countries, international developed countries, to actually do more to support the People's Republic of Bangladesh in fighting, in honesty, a worldwide battle. This isn't Bangladesh's war. This is a war being fought internationally by every country in the world. Whether you talk about Asia, Africa, or Europe, the effects are clear. I've got many friends from Uganda, and one of the things that only a couple of days ago was mentioned to me was that they are having flooding in regions of the country, which is unheard of. Now, this is partly down to climate change, and it's partly down to man-made or consequences of our own actions, where people are cutting off river basins to create communities in that area, which is ultimately resulting in overflow of the actual rivers and so forth. So this is ultimately a issue close to the hearts of not just Bangladeshi people, but many third world countries who spend the bulk of their yearly income paying back debts to developed countries. Now, I'll talk about Bangladesh particularly. We are, currently going through a boom in the country economically, and in many other ways. We have seen the seeds of, if you want to call it in some cases, socialism flourish. We're working internationally with countries like China, America, the UK to develop our infrastructure, from creating bridges to roads to the healthcare to even education. But as a whole, Bangladesh spends 20%, which is huge, of its yearly income, paying back debt to whether it's England, America, or developed nations. These are, bulk of these debts are debts accumulated prior to our independence or during the independence. Now, in some cases, for some countries, this is pre-colonial debts. This is what debts placed on international governments whilst people were trading lives. They were trading with human beings. I don't want to touch on that subject because we can go on for hours. But we really have to spend 20% of our yearly income repaying debt while simultaneously spending another 10 to 20% fighting global climate change. Ultimately, it's unfair, and only recently the Foreign Minister of Bangladesh, who visited the UK, made it very loud and clear in most of his programs that we need more support from international governments. Developed countries, we need, as the Prime Minister of Bangladesh has stated recently, we need should we say, we need to reanalyze these debts. We need to go back to these debts to actually figure out what really should be paid, and there needs to be a restructuring of these debts. It's unfair for us to accumulate debt prior, during the colonial era, have to continuously pay it back, and at the same time we're expected to spend further millions, rehoming people and fighting the climate change that in reality should be fought by developed countries. So these are some of the issues that are close to our heart, which directly influence the lives of British people as well as those in Bangladesh or other developing countries. And it's important, not just British Bangladeshi society, but other organizations. And situations like this, I firmly believe it shouldn't be a case of left and right. Something like climate change is an international issue. This is an issue that we should unilaterally combine and work together on. So it's something that needs to be raised, and I'm hoping going forward, yourself as well, Andrea, we can all work together to try apply some pressure onto the government and other international bodies to actually raise our voice, support your British Bangladeshi comrades in actually lobbying individuals, MPs, Parliament, to actually do more to support not just Bangladesh, but other countries affected by global warming and the changes that are having a disastrous effect on the day-to-day lives of poor people who are just about making ends meet to provide food on the table for their families, to then have to relocate or go through a flooding scenario. It's unfair, and far more needs to be done about it.
Yeah, I agree with you, mate. And basically, it's good that you've actually brought the climate up, because I don't know if you know, but history was actually made yesterday because the African and Caribbean unions basically got together and had their first ever summit. And so one of the key things that they're going to be fighting is the climate, because obviously, you know, just recently I watched my auntie's village underwater, mate, like literally underwater. I could not believe what I was seeing. And obviously with COVID and that, we can't get out there. So, you know, it was painful watching that. Like I've never ever seen, you know, that country underwater before. And you know, obviously my mum's country, St. Lucia, they always have hurricanes. So, you know, there's always something in that region. And, you know, they fight about so many different things in the Caribbean, but the priority never ever seems to be on hurricane defenses or defensives for the climate in general. And in terms of like refugees as well, I don't know if you know, but in 2020, there was 40 million refugees. So 10 million of those refugees were from countries that were in war. 30 million were from the climate crisis, right? So at the end of the day, it is an issue and it is displacing people that look like us, mate. Do you know what I mean? So at the end of the day, I'm more than prepared to do a campaign with you on this because it is a priority. Do you know what I mean? And, you know, with Algeria, even the other day, like they've only recently now just got rid of leaded petrol. 20 years after the rest of the world, like literally, it's not even funny. Those people are suffering, and obviously, as we know, lead poisons. So it's like, do you know what I mean? We need to be prioritizing the climate, I think, and especially for the developing countries as well. Do you know what I mean? They need that support. And obviously, we've got COP26 coming up, and obviously, we know that this is going to be an absolute joke. But I do feel like we could cause some chaos down there, and you know, go up there and protest, man. I feel like that needs to be happening, because if we don't do something about it, all we're going to be doing is in the next 40 years time, mate, we're literally going to be having the same conversation, but yet the earth is probably going to be like how many degrees hotter. We're going to be seeing more, you know, disasters. We've also got the sun in September. Like, please, you can't tell me that that's not weird. Like, round here, we've got berries. The berries are all, do you know what I mean? They're thriving. And you can pick them now at the moment. We've got apples all over the place. Do you know what I mean? People are even giving them out for free round here. Putney living, what can I say? And, you know, this is what's going on round here.
Sorry, I'll cut you up. Jeremy must be making good jam right now with the weather.
Mate, he must be living his best life. That's all I'm saying. And he also needs to be hooking me up with some of that jam, because everybody keeps telling me about it and I've never had it, mate. So I need to be getting hooked up with that at some stage.
Well, we're trying to get him to donate a jar of jam, which we can auction at our formation dinner. So, you know, your wish is nothing to come true. So, you know, watch this space. But aside from Jeremy's lovely jam, going back to what you were saying, Andrea, and I totally agree. I'll just touch on a couple of points. The refugee crisis, particularly in Bangladesh, we've had to have, I don't know if you're aware of the Myanmar-Burma situation that's been ongoing for the last few years, but Bangladesh have actually taken on 4 million Rohingya refugees. Some individuals that, 4 million, and we're actually housing them, we're accommodating them, we're providing them with first aid. So when you put the 4 million refugee crisis that you know, where they've actually moved into Bangladesh, you're talking about people that are being relocated, as you said. It goes into the millions. So you're seeing millions of lives affected on a day-to-day basis, and far more needs to be done about it, touching on parts of the Caribbean and Africa, but even as much as, I don't know if you know about Haiti. It had, you know,
Haiti,
it was saddening. It was really, really saddening when you saw what the country was going through with, you know, some of the climate issues and the lack of support available to them. And worse still, in my opinion, you had international charities raising hundreds of millions of pounds that people were donating to them. But on the actual ground, you literally got for 100 million, 10 metal houses built out of metal sheets, literally about 10, 20 of them. So my question to you is, where has the 100 million gone? And are charities doing enough to actually help the communities that they're supposedly collecting money for? And there needs to be far more scrutiny on these organizations because they're getting far too much money, and you're seeing far too little change on the actual ground or the lives of people on a day-to-day basis. And finally, on touching on the COP26, and as you exactly said, solidarity, that's exactly, you took the words out of my mouth, especially BSS. We, A, do want to go along. B, we will be reaching out to other left-leaning organizations and trade unions to support us, to help us take an entourage of people to the summit. And Sheikh Hasina, the Prime Minister of Bangladesh, is actually chairing that meeting. So it's an extra incentive for us to actually go and speak our voice, show our presence, and to show people everywhere that we do have a united front. We've got organizations, brothers and sisters that support us across the UK in the trade union movement, in the political movement, and on the grassroots movement.
Yeah, it's it's absolutely wild what's going on. So like before I got involved with the Labour Party, I was actually working with a UK aid agency. So I was lobbying MPs. So my MP was a Conservative at the time. And so I was lobbying her to keep the 0.7% UK aid. Like, we were the leaders. And obviously, I don't know if you know, but the Conservatives have decreased that funding, unfortunately. That's absolutely broken my heart this year, to be honest. Like, I fought for 3 years, I fought for that money to be kept. And for it to just go like that, do you know what I mean? They're going to pretty much use any excuse now not to do their part. And like, it was interesting for me because within the African and Caribbean summit, they were pretty much talking about the fact that they need to start demanding more from the developed countries. And it's true, like, I feel like it's time for those regions to now get together, and even with other regions as well, other developing regions, they need to get together and now demand more, because let's be real here, the biggest climate emitters are the developed countries, and at the end of the day, we even have the cheek to send our dodgy recycling stuff to the poorest parts of the world, do you know what I mean, and leave them suffering with it. So at the end of the day, like, we have a really, really big role to play here, and I just feel like now is the time for us to like make really some big noise on this, to be honest. So I guess, Syed, like, in terms of priorities for the Bangladeshi community, what would you say are the top priorities currently now, obviously with the pandemic as well?
Ultimately, our group has to meet and discuss what they officially want to prioritize, but I can safely say that we obviously want to differentiate issues. We want to discuss issues which matter to British Bangladeshis and activists in the UK, and then you've got issues that affect our community in Bangladesh. So it's about finding that balance of actually working at what is more important. Ultimately, like I said, the NHS is important to us. Climate change is important to us. Political democracy is important to us, especially within the Labour Party. And local community issues, schools being closed, libraries being closed, language courses being closed, colonial education. I'm just going to pop the fan on because I'm getting a bit hot with the climate change. Colonial education. Am I affecting the mic in any way?
No, you're cool, man.
Colonial education is important to us. It's one of the main campaigns we want to fight, which is ultimately colonial history should be taught at school. It should be taught at school from a very primary level. And only then can we actually not just challenge racism, but we can actually proactively do something to educate young students from an early age, be it primary school, secondary school, or higher level. But ultimately, it's important it's done at a very young level to educate them about not our differences, but what we have in common, to speak about the Windrush generation that, came into the UK and helped create the infrastructure, from the railways to building projects, to housing, name it. We have played our part in society. You hear many people say, oh, ethnic minority people don't really integrate into society. They don't really do as much as they can. I totally disagree. I think there are some barriers that we need to overcome. I think education is a large aspect of those barriers, providing those education, providing language classes to encourage people to actually get involved in their communities from a local, regional, national level, not to be afraid to speak their voice, their minds, what they feel, what they want. You know, there are meetings where I've gone and spoke about, you know, certain race issues, and some people shut you down and you can hold on, where am I? Is this the right platform to be sharing? And I feel it's important that needs to be on the top of not just BSS's agenda, but the agenda of every left-leaning anti-racist movement organization in the country, particularly in the labor movement, where we unite and we actually go to parliament, we do petitions and we say we want colonial history to our children and to students across the country from a very young level, from a very young age, and it will help them appreciate what ethnic minorities have not just done for society, but contributed and gone above and beyond. When you look at how the government's treating the Windrush generation, it's scandalous. It is absolutely scandalous. And I know Diane, as well as many others, yourself included, have raised your voices about these issues. But again, this is something we need to challenge. We cannot let it go quietly, because one of the things that ultimately hurt us more than anything is our lack of courage to speak up. Where do we go? Who do we go with? What do we say? Who do we work with? And these are issues I feel we now, in today's day and age, have to network, communicate, unite, and actually start working together. And it gives us a stronger voice, louder voice, and far more influence when it comes to making changes that really matter and make the difference to people's day-to-day lives.
Yeah, so you've just brought up a really interesting topic for me. So here in Wandsworth, we've got a anti-racist education campaign. So we've been campaigning for Black history to be added to the curriculum. We're also supporting the Gypsy Roman travellers to have, you know, be added to the curriculum as well in terms of the Holocaust and the impacts that it had on the community as well. So you might as well come down, my friend, and talk to my group about the Bangladeshi community and ways that we could encourage people to obviously campaign for Bangladeshi history to be included to the curriculum as well. It'd really be good to, you know, hear from you as well, because we do have a small Bangladeshi community in Wandsworth as well. So it's also, you know, maybe bring that community out to come and see you as well. So I'll definitely get in touch with you on that, because I didn't actually know that there was a campaign going on to decolonize the curriculum for Bangladeshis as well. So that's really, really brilliant to hear. I feel like you know, we have to continue to fight for that, because to be honest, like, I'm sick and tired of Black people and the Asian side of my family being known as indentured, you know, workers or slaves from the get-go. Do you know what I mean? I'm sick and tired of it. Like, we were more than that before you know, obviously slavery happened. Do you know what I mean? So like, I just feel like, you know, it is time for all of our groups to get together and fight for this. Like, we have the right to do it. Like, my grandparents came over here. My granddad was a baker, my grandma was a nurse, do you know what I mean? And on my dad's side, my grandma's a carer. So like, you know, big part in the NHS and stuff, and they helped build it, do you know what I mean? So at the end of the day, you know, to, you know, for the Windrush generation to, you know, be treated like this, it actually breaks my heart, to be honest. And like, I always fight for them people. So yeah, thank you for bringing up decolonizing the curriculum, because it is a very, very important issue, and I just feel like you know, we do need to fight on it. So I guess, like, you know, what are the future plans?
Well, one of the things that I think that I should mention, and you know, the viewers or yourself might have differing views. I think we should avoid going down that route of dividing Black colonial history, Bangladeshi colonial history. You talk about Sierra Leone's colonial history. You talk about Uganda's colonial history, and it's quite an easy tactic for the establishment to turn people against each other. Oh no, Bangladesh's colonial history is more important than Senegal's colonial history. And I think this is one of the territories we should avoid. Colonial history is colonial history. The British Empire was not divided when they colonized some of our countries. It was one entity. And now we need to represent and respond as one entity. And colonial history shouldn't just be about, let's talk about or put this into the curriculum and we don't need to put that into the curriculum. Ultimately, colonial history must and should include the colonial history of every country colonized, what they, what the British Empire did, how it was done, and the actual consequences of it. Countries are still suffering today because of actions committed 100 years ago. We are still having their effects. We're still having debts. We're still having political corruption. And I think it's important we don't differentiate. We go as one unity, united. We stand divided. We're two small entities can only do so much. You combine them all together as one, we can become such a big entity that it'll be difficult for people to brush our views aside. It'll be difficult for them to actually say this isn't important and that's more important. We talk about colonial history, you talk about Holocaust. We all know about Holocaust that have occurred throughout the countries, across history. But if I was to ask you, are you aware of the the Holocaust in, don't quote me, I think it was Sierra Leone. More than 15 million people were killed by King Leopold of Belgium. Now, 15 million documented people were killed in Sierra Leone.
That was the Congo. It was the Congo, darling. Yeah, it was the Congo, yeah.
So I said, correct me if I'm wrong, in the Congo. Now, are we taught this? Why have we not taught this? It's 15 million Black African lives murdered, not worthwhile talking about. Ridiculous. It should be spoken about. It should be documented, and children should be educated to actually learn what British Empire and colonial politics really resulted in. What are the consequences? People still live with the scars till today. So these are issues that needs to be raised, that need to be brought to the front line of politics, and call it repatriation or call it apologies. We want a response.
No, exactly. I agree with you. I do feel like it is a everybody in situation because, like, so many communities have built this country up, and at the end of the day, it wasn't just down to one community. It was a load of communities that have come over here. Just in London alone, we've got 48 different languages, man. Do you know what I mean? So at the end of the day, like, it's a mixture of communities that have built this country up, and I feel like we should all be appreciated for all of the efforts that we have put into this country, and of course, from the World War One, from the World War Two, African and Indian soldiers were fighting in that. Like, why can't we hear more about that? Why is it only now that these soldiers are being commemorated? Like, do you know what I mean? How come now? Like, it's absolutely disgraceful that it's only, coming out now, and it's, more awareness is coming of it. Do you know what I mean? So many inventors are Black and Asian, and they're just never ever spoken about. And it's, like, it's time that we push our people out there, man. That's exactly what I think about it. Do you know what I mean? So in terms of like your launch date, is there how do people find out about that?
The launch date, obviously we've done it. It has been a bit of a last minute preparation. So forgive us for that, because with everything going on with COVID and Brighton nearing up, every restaurant and events were all literally booked out. So we're trying to sort out the logistics. Now, ultimately, there's only so many seats that are available. And so we have to figure out how we actually send the invites out. Is it a public event? Is it not? Considering we're going to have many senior key guest speakers, it's important that we actually vet individuals that attend the actual meeting, just in case, you've heard about disturbances across the years. So once the finer details are confirmed, you will be somebody that I will send the information to. We will only have a handful of tickets available, but one of our aims is to reach out to every left-leaning socialist organization, invite them, representatives from their organization to come along. We can't accommodate, most likely we can't accommodate 5 or 10 people from each and every left-leaning organization. It's impossible because our restaurant booking, it's not going to be a large number of seats. But nevertheless, we will be reaching out to all the left-leaning organizations, asking them to hopefully A, support us, B, come along and send representatives of their organization to come along and support us. So it's us basically saying hello to the Labour Party, hello to the socialist MPs and hello to all the left-leaning organizations to say, let's work together, let's unite, and let's campaign on the ground from the bottom up for issues that really make the difference to people's day-to-day lives.
Oh, thank you for letting us know what's been going on. And Syed, do you have any other campaigns that you're working on locally or nationally? Like, is there any other things that you're doing?
So we wanna reach out to the community. Ultimately, yeah. I live in Redbridge. I can tell you that we've got a issue with teachers on strike, a campaign that I personally would want to support and help. But ultimately, it's unfair for me personally to decide what is our priorities. I think one of the reasons we're creating such an exclusive society is so we can have a list of members, subscribers initially, and we can actually ask them what are issues that really matter to you, what are issues that are close to your heart, and what do you think are issues and campaigns that we can actually get involved, support, not just in London, but across the UK. Now, we've got communities in Humberside, we've got communities in Birmingham, we've got a large community in Luton, we've got, you know, and they need representatives, they need a voice. And I'm not just talking about the British Bangladeshi community, I'm just talking about the working class community as a whole. And our objective is to reach out to our, you know, what's the word? Our members, subscribers, comrades, those that are proactive in wanting to work with us, helping us to actually not just get on board with us, but to tell us, what do you want us to do? How can we help? Can we send a group of 10, 20 people to a local campaign? Can we send people on the picket line? Can we actually come outside your hospital and send representatives or members to work with you, to actually help you on campaigns? And these are one of the stepping stones of what we will actually do. And ideally, once we've formatted as an organization, and even prior to that, the committee, National Steering Committee, the founding committee, should I say, will sit down and explore ideas of how best to reach out to the community, how best to reach out to organizations, and what can we do to make your life easier. So we want to do less answering, and we want to put more questions out, and we want to hear what people's responses are before we actually make a judgment on what best to do, what campaigns to prioritize.
Oh, nice one. Syed, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show today, and, you know, just hearing about what you've been up to with your campaign group. I'm wishing you all of the success, and hopefully I can make it to your launch day, because I will be up in Brighton. So depending on what I'm doing during that day, I will make sure that I can get there and support you all, because it sounds an amazing campaign. And yeah, I'm just really, really looking forward to it. So everybody, we will plug, obviously, the launch event when Syed passes it on to us. And yeah, Syed, thanks for joining us again. And what I'm going to do now is pass over to Ridwan, who is going to give us a brilliant update about what's been going on with Labour Black Socialists.
I just want to say thank you for having me.
Yes, my sister. Thank you for getting us back online. And it's a hard act to follow our brother Syed Siddiqi, because for him just to stay positive, given the pressure that he personally faces and the daily catastrophes that the Bangladeshi community faces. This brother needs a bit of love from us, and we are fortunate that you are going to give them a huge plug so that others can love them, because it is only with love that we will find the strength to continue in the face of these outrages that our communities face. My sister, we are busy. We have people busy in Grenfell Tower. and the towers are going to be demolished. The evidence is going to be destroyed. People died. And the political class is silent. Not enough is done. There's a big enough carpet under which to sweep Grenfell Tower. And unless more people make a noise, the issue will just disappear. One looks at the Windrush compensation scheme. We've got black people who are involved there in just the sheer failure of people whose contributions to this country have been disregarded and discounted. Livelihoods have been disrupted. People have been uprooted and deported. Many have died. And we have a Home Secretary for whom these issues are not important. Because if they were, they've had 2 years to implement the compensation scheme. But you need a PhD to fill in the forms. They haven't even gotten to a third of the payouts in 2 years. And these are largely politically black people, but they're not exclusively black people when we talk about Grenfell and we talk about Windrush, but because it is predominantly black people, it doesn't count as much. But it counts for us because for us, Grenfell, Windrush is personal. It is our own. And then we have people who are active in schools. They're concerned about the cuts in the budgets for special needs because schools are now having to look at because councils are not providing the service as is needed, the schools find that their budgets have been cut, but the children are still there, and the schools have to decide, do they purchase overpriced private special needs support for one child, or do they prioritize the needs of a whole class? And there are black children there. There are white children there. There are children there. And I would have thought that this would be an issue that would gather more support. One of the people in Labour Party Socialists, Labour Black Socialists, has a son with these types of difficulties. The son was expelled, excluded. And people are busy there, and this is austerity being pushed to the margins, to the front line. And the Tories say, we're in it, we're all in it together. No. Everything that they do, the Tories look after the rich. A colorful word would be, they mess around. A more colorful word would be better, with the poor. But there are not many people in the official political parties doing this work. It is ordinary people. And then, of course, we have the attempts to be rather draconian. The UK, as a member of the United Nations Security Council, with a duty to the 1951 Refugee Convention and its 1967 protocol, when you're a member of the UN Security Council, you are the guardian of this convention and the protocol. And we have in Ashford and Kent, a Labour Party leader saying, we need to have vigilantes rounding up migrants who cross illegally and hand them over to the border guards. Now, what is he talking about? White people taking to the street and chasing black people in the streets and handing them over to the border. We've had that in this country in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, when the police and white people went into black communities and they went, now be careful, those of a sensitive disposition, this is not my words. They went, they called it as such, nigger hunting. It's not my words. This is their words. This is a racist campaign. And guess what? The person who says that racist vigilante project is a secure member of his political party. If any one of us said that, and quite correctly, if any one of us said that about a community that was the victim of the Holocaust, you would not be only run out of the political party, you would be run out of the country. But these are black people. And they say, yes, they must have vigilantes to round up the refugees because it is people smugglers that are causing the increase in refugees crossing illegally from France. No, that's nonsense. That's too easy. There is a link between, as you spoke to our previous guest, our brother Syed Siddiqi, there's a link between climate change, war, and refugees. As Siva in the 1980s from the Institute of Race Relations said, the refugees are here because the UK is there. The UK has 142 military installations in 45 countries, and each of these countries is unstable because of these military installations. The United States has 800 military installations across the world, and they are not there to make peace, because peace anywhere is a strategic threat to the military-industrial complex. The very people who are having the arms fair in Liverpool soon, they create the refugees that cross the channel. And we will be expelled if we are opposed to the arms fair. And we must be rounded up like dogs by vigilantes in Ashford and Kent. Oh, I'm one of those who come out swinging when I face a vigilante. And then again, they just, the party of low taxes, just passed just managed to win the vote on an increase in national insurance. They didn't have a manifesto basis for this. They broke their manifesto pledge. Now, this is how it works. You increase taxes and you break your manifesto pledge, and you still tell the voters, we are the party of low taxation. I just increase the taxes. I'm mugging you. And I say, I love you. You can't get away with this unless you're a Tory. And guess what? The richer you are, the less national insurance you pay. And if you work with your hands, you pay more national insurance than the person who owns shares on the stock exchange. So there's a class element here. And percentage-wise, our brother Maurice McLeod has made a point. When this issue was first raised, he was very busy on Twitter. Young black people are going to pay a disproportionate percentage of income on national insurance. And the majority of people who will need national insurance cover for social care are not black people. But that is another matter. Again, your favorite campaign, one of your favorite campaigns is rough sleeping. And here we give a shout out to Hackney Council for having come out in support of rough sleepers who are not British. And they have come out to say that they are going to support and not deport. We hope that they are going to be able to stay the course, because it is the only moral position to have. We've seen the vaccines, the election bill being debated yesterday, mandatory voter ID, where a majority of people who will likely not have IDs are those from ethnic minorities, younger people or older people, and people who are paying rent, people who are living precariously. They don't have documents with them, but they won't be able to have a say about who runs the country. And it makes one wonder. Some people are rather cynical and they say, if democracy really posed a threat to the establishment, they would have cancelled the democracy. So yeah, we're going through the motions of a hollowed out democratic process, killing the vulnerable politically, socially excluding them. There isn't a problem with voter ID. In 2019, there was one instance, one case. And for that, this is just a culture war by the Tories that they import from Texas, from the American South. And let us remember, the people in the American South are these plantation owners who come from here. When there were plantations in the American South, these cotton plantations, they came from here. It's their sons and daughters. And they still are racists. And they are wanting to bring those fake problems, bring it here. But we mustn't be diverted. We must just focus on the real issues that the establishment don't want us to talk about. It is race and class. And that intersection, and that is what Black Socialists is about. That intersection between race and class. And our brother was talking about, and you were talking about, the various ways in which sometimes we fragment ourselves. And Siva, again, of the Institute of Relations, coined the term political blackness. We just need an umbrella. It doesn't matter to what extent we agree or disagree, but if we don't unite, this establishment, like they eat up the people who contributed and built this country after 1948 with the Windrush generation, they'll chew us up and spit us out. And Labour Black Socialists is asking black people, whatever our differences, let us unite. And Labour Black Socialists is asking the left. There's a conference coming up. There's a left conference. We have to do whatever it takes to maximize our gains and minimize our losses, to increase our capacity to fight inside the Labour Party, to build left structures and institutions outside and affiliated to and part of the Labour Party, and also to deepen the presence of left thinking and activism and networks where we are locally, by taking up single issues in our community, if it is housing, homelessness, education, exclusion, gender-based violence, etc. But it is in doing that, we've got a few weeks before it is showtime. And how lovely would it be if this rather draconian, we've got a Labour Party leadership that is asking the Taliban to run an inclusive government. Now you can't make this up. A Labour Party that is proscribing organizations, indulging in selective anti-Semitism against JVL, and we are in solidarity with JVL. We are joining in a fringe program with JVL. So there are lots of things happening in the community, lots of things happening nationally, but the key thing is we can have fun at the Labour Party conference. And Labour Black Socialist activists would be there at the left conference, at the Brighton Fringe with JVL, and we've got a few people. But then there is one of the biggest things happening is the leader of the Labour Party council in Manchester is resigning. And I don't think that our sister Ekwa might have had only a small part to play in that decision. For the first time in 25 years, this leader was challenged. And she was the face of the challenge. And there is something for people to note. She didn't have a long record in the Labour Party. She didn't come in with lots of backing. She just came with her integrity, her honesty, her decency, and courage. And boom, 12 months later, the world has changed in Manchester local government. I think we can stop there. We've got lots of things happening, and it has been a pleasure to be on this program. See you in Brighton.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Syed, and we will see you next week. Woohoo!